Welcome to week 3, and this is the week we are going to start actually combining and putting our chapters together. So if you remember from week 2, we started talking about a urinalysis and we talked about blood collection. We're going to again touch on those chapters this week, but we're going to touch on different parts of it. We're going to talk about a microscope and a microscopic urinalysis. We will also be talking about doing pregnancy testing and what the requirements are with pregnancy testing. On Angel, you will see that we have to read chapters 2, 3, and 7. Now, you've already read chapters 2 and 3, so it's going to be a review for those chapters. But please make sure that you do read chapter 7, as it will deal with some of the responsibilities for this week. Okay. So let's start talking about microscopes. So we did talk about this a little bit in chapter 2 already, but we're going to kind of go back and do some touch points here. Now I'm sure that most of you at some point in time in your life and in your school career have had to deal with a microscope. Probably already all been through high school and you've had to do things in science classes and you've had your science teachers let you use microscopes before. And nothing really is going to change with that. You're going to still be playing with microscopes as medical assistants. Now, here what we want to do, what's really important, is learning what the 3 functional units of a microscope are. So the first functional unit is going to be what we call your foundational structure. That is things such as the arm, the stage, and the base of your microscope. The second piece would be your illuminating structures, things such as your light source and your condensers. And the last one is the magnifying structures. Now this includes your objective lens, your ocular lens, and your focus and adjustments. What's really important when we talk about your magnifying structure is knowing how to read the total magnification. When you do this, it's going to come from 2 different sources. It's going to come from your ocular lens and your objective lens. Each of those will have a magnification on them. For the objective lenses, they come in 4, 10, 100. You're going to times whatever that number is times the ocular lens, and the ocular lens has a magnification of 10x. It's also important that you know how to clean the lenses, because at times they can get dirty or dust in them, and it makes it hard to read and look at your specimens under the microscope. The important thing when you're cleaning them is always remember that you want to clean the oil immersion lens last, because it does have an oil base, and if you do that first, it does spread to some of the other lenses and it makes it very hard to clean those. So those are the big things that I wanted to touch on and topics I wanted to touch on for microscopes. We will be doing a worksheet in class that lets you label a microscope so you know the different parts of it. So I will make sure all those materials are ready in class and printed off so you will not need to print anything. So now that you know a little bit more about microscopes, let's discuss how we're going to perform a microscopic urinalysis and why we would perform one. So last week you guys learned how to do chemical and physical urinalysis, but a microscopic is going to go a little bit more in depth. It's going to go a little bit beyond the surface level. What this means is that we're going to take a sample of urine and we're actually going to spin it down in a centrifuge. When you spin it down, what's going to happen is it's going to separate the urine into the liquid portion and the sediment. The liquid portion will actually be the top part, and the bottom portion, which will be kind of a combined hard sediment. When you do a microscopic urinalysis, what we're doing is really looking at examining the urine and the sediment, counting what is in there, and categorizing what sediment we do find. The liquid portion that is at the top after we spit it off, we will not be using. That will be poured off. Okay? What we really just want is that hard sediment at the bottom. You can extract that after you do a centrifuging, and from the centrifuge tube we can extract that and we can look at it under a microscope. We'll actually put it onto a slide. Now sometimes you may need to stain the sediment, and what that means is we're going to add a dye to it, which will actually work in helping us categorize and count the microorganisms we find within the urine. Now when we look at the microscope and the urine under the microscope, there will be several different things that we can find. We could find things such as cells. So things like your white blood cells, your red blood cells, and your epithelial cells. We could also find things like casts. And what a cast is it's a buildup of a sediment. And there are different casts, and they all have a different look and a different structure to them. So I'm going to have you guys do some research on your own and look at those in your book. We can also find things such as crystals. Now crystals can either be alkaline-based or acidic-based. But we can also have what we call abnormal crystals. So again, I'm going to put this on you guys. Make sure you do the review in your book and you read this chapter again to take a look at those pictures and be able to categorize them. Now, in our urine, we can also find bacteria, yeast, parasites. We can find sperm or mucus, or we can find some other artifacts. There's a great deal that we could find in our urine during a microscopic urinalysis. Your job as the medical assistant is really going to be to spin that urine down, get it set up on the microscope for your provider, and make all those little adjustments. So all he has to do is come over, be able to count it, categorize it, and examine it. The final piece for this week that we'll be learning is how to perform a pregnancy test. Now most of you I know are already mothers and we understand how to do a home pregnancy test, but in the clinical setting it is a bit different. It's the same process, we're still looking for that HCG hormone, but it's going to be found a little bit differently. So the HCG hormone can be found in blood or urine. Most people don't know what the HCG hormone is, but you also don't know that it can be detected 1 to 5 days after conception. The best time to really detect or find that hormone is really going to be when it hits its peak. And it will hit its peak and be at its highest concentration during the 15 to 18 day period of conception and pregnancy. After that time period, what's going to happen is that hormone will actually start to drop off or decline, or go to still a lower concentration level. It's still there throughout the body and throughout the pregnancy, it just is not as strong and concentrated as it was during that peak period. Okay. Remember, it is not that you can't confirm pregnancy after that 15 to 18 day period and that the HCG hormone will be present, it's just not as predominant. When you are performing a pregnancy test in the clinical setting or in the lab itself, we call those tests CLIA-waived. What that means is they can be performed in clinics, and it does not have to strictly be in a hospital or a larger lab setting. We can get the answers in a quick fashion, and we get a positive or negative result. When you do a home pregnancy test, you're still going to get, just like you would in a clinical setting, you're going to get that positive or negative result. The only difference really is the cassette type that we will use. So we'll get to play with that on Thursday when I see you guys. When you are performing a pregnancy test, you really do want to try to use that first morning specimen. The reason is first morning specimen is generally the most highly concentrated with that HCG hormone. You also want to be sure that you look at the specific gravity of the urine, because if that is too high, what happens is that it actually dilutes our sample, and it makes it potentially have a false positive result. And like I said in the beginning, urine test is not the only way that you can detect pregnancy. You can also do blood testing. Alright guys, that is all I have for this week. Please don't forget that you have 2 discussion posts this week. Your first discussion post is based off of your diversity project. Remember, I said that I want you to take your initial scenario that you completed in week 2, that you submitted to me, You're going to actually put that into a discussion post now so that way your classmates can give you feedback as well. Your second discussion post is based off of the first morning specimen. So both of those are going to be due Tuesday by midnight, and your responses will still be due on Saturday. This week for responses, though, you will have 4 responses. 2 for the diversity project, 2 for your first morning specimen. So please don't forget, 2 initial discussion posts due Tuesday, 4 responses on Saturday. Also this week, your resume rough draft is due. Please remember that you need to submit that through Optimal Resume and have Jessica Colt or somebody else in Career Services do an actual review of your rough draft. When they send you back a hard copy with their comments on that hard copy, that is what I want you to submit in the Dropbox for your rough draft. There is a rubric that I put up in the calendar under the due date, so please make sure you take a look at that as well. And lastly, this week you will have your first quiz. As always, we will always do a quiz review in class, and your quiz will be due Sunday by midnight. Alright guys, I look forward to seeing everyone on Thursday. Have a wonderful week. Bye.